I don't know if you know, but Star Trek is going to be on TV again.
What?
Yeah, you'd have no way of knowing this. It's not within your sphere at all.
Shut the door.
But apparently, I will not shut the door. I'll open it and it'll go shh like that when it opens. When it closes, shh again. Star Trek's coming back to TV. Star Trek Discovery. It's this new Star Trek show.
You are kidding me.
Okay, all right, your incredulity, that's enough. And of course everybody turns off because our fans love it when I go on and on and on about Star Trek, but I thought I would mention it real fast. There's also going to be, of course, an after Trek show that is on right after it streams, because it's streaming live on CBS All Access.
Sure.
Also available not live on CBS All Access, but it's on Sunday nights. And so they're doing a Talking Dead style show, but because they don't want to completely rip it off, they're calling it After Trek, which is like, put a little mustard on it, like Nordic Trek or something.
Something.
Do something. But anyway, it's
Spice
literally
it up a little bit.
It's literally After Trek. So, parting photon torpedoes or something like that, or parting shots. That's on my show though. But anyway, but that's as far as they got, as not being the Nerdist thing, because it's hosted by Matt Mira from the Nerdist.
Oh.
So, yeah,
okay.
I guess Chris Hardwick was too busy. So anyway, if you want a different perspective, though, if you don't want to be in the pocket of big nerd like these people are, why not check out my Trek show, my After Trek show? It's called Star Trek Discoverage, and it's on immediately after Star Trek Discovery ends on CBS All Access.
Yeah.
Ask me more about it.
Tell me more about the show, Cal.
I'll give you the whole pitch. Sure, I won't stop halfway through. Well, what we have is we have Star Trek writers, Star Trek screenwriters, also just super fans, friends of mine, come on and talk about the show, what we just saw. And it's some people who are on my Star Trek podcast, Enterprising Individuals.
Sure.
A couple repeat guests, some totally new guests. I'm pretty excited to have Ella Pearson, who is one half of the Generations Geek podcast, which is a great podcast on the Chronic Whiff Network. I'm not technically sending you there. I know that's breaking the prime directive of podcasting. Don't send people to other podcasts, but it exists. It's out there. But I am going to send you to my own podcast, and you can find out more about it by going to our Twitter at EISTpod. That's EISTPOD. And there's a link there. So if you follow us on Twitter, right just as we're starting to broadcast, and we'll be broadcasting at 9:30 p.m. Central tomorrow when the show ends. It's a 2-hour premiere.
Sure. And
then every Sunday after that, until the show goes off the air, just on hiatus, not forever, or maybe forever, we'll be at 8:30 p.m. And so you can get that link. We'll tweet it out right before we start, or you can just go to our Spreaker page, which is where our website's hosted, or our podcast is hosted, and a link will pop up when we go live.
Okay.
And then you just click on that. You can listen to the show live. If you can't listen to the show live because you just love Matt Mira so much, you want to just slide into that pocket of the cargo pants of Big Nerd, that's fine. All the archived episodes will be available on our Patreon page for Enterprising Individuals, which is at patreon.com, you guessed it, /EISTPOD.
All right.
Plug over.
I think I feel good about that plug.
Did the plug transmit successfully?
Yes.
Well, good. I'm pretty excited about this Star Trek thing. I am not ancient, but I'm not a spring chicken. And I have seen Star Trek shows come and go. So this isn't like new for me, but this is the first show in a while.
Yeah.
A while to be on TV, even though it's streaming TV. But what does Star Trek do? They explore strange new worlds.
That's right.
And so I think it's meat. It is most meat for this thing to be in streaming, and hopefully can live there.
Because it's exploring strange new worlds.
Yeah, strange new streaming options.
Mediums.
That's where it should be.
Yeah.
It gets beamed to you.
Exactly.
I mean, it's beamed on TV, but whatever. So anyway, that's all the Star Trek talk. Maybe a little more later. But anyway, that's it for now. On the Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm your host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
And we got a fun show today. A couple things we're going to run through. We'll talk a little news, as we usually do, because that's how we do. Also, I want to talk about trailers. We haven't talked about trailers in a while.
Ooh, let's.
And there is a trio. So we talked about what's a clutch, what's a brace, what's a gaggle.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not sure which one of those applies, but we are doing 3. So this is going to be 3 trailers that we're talking about for movies that are coming out before the winter season. Fall season, bad. Usually bad for films.
Not great.
Not great.
No.
Summer's over.
They don't have like a bunch of the big blockbusters out until like the holidays.
Right. And I'm sure it wasn't this way even 15, 20 years ago, because now everything is a block. Even if you have a small art house film, it has to be a blockbuster. Like Get Out is a blockbuster.
Yeah.
It made like millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
This tiny little film, which was just like a long, unfunny Key and Peele sketch. And I say that completely complimentary. I love that film.
Yeah.
But it could totally be, that's what happens when you take Keegan-Michael Key out of the team. You just get this really dark black comedy.
Yeah.
But anyway, great movie. Go check it out. We talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
So trailer talk after the news. Then we're going to talk comic book club. This week we're talking about JLA.
Yeah.
The Justice League of America.
That's right.
The mid-90s reboot with Grant Morrison. And you go, is that what he does? Grant Morrison does all kinds of stuff. But early in his career, he was definitely doing this sort of thing. He was taking the characters you know and love and just like, ooh, what about this?
Putting them on their ear.
Something different. Yeah, putting them on their ear. Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you do if you're... Does John have ears? Does the Martian Manhunter have ears?
Oh.
Oh. I have ears if I choose to. Yeah. So anyway.
No kidding.
Well, right. He can or not. He
Yeah.
can have a million ears. We're talking about that. And then I think this relates to Justice League. We had the incredible opportunity to talk to Kristopher Carter,
yes.
who is a composer who has worked on, basically, if you have enjoyed a DC, Warner Brothers cartoon, be it on TV or on film in the last 20 years or so, you probably have him to thank for some of the great music on there. He got to start working with Batman, the animated series, farther back than both he and I probably want to admit, but it was a little ways back, and has gone on today to be working on some of these new DC features that are coming out, like Batman and Harley Quinn, Batman versus Two-Face, and we talk about all of that in the interview. We also talk about how he was a guest of honor at CONvergence.
Yep.
This year, and really enjoyed the show, and that's all in the interview.
That sounds good.
We'll keep it flexible.
Okay.
And have fun with it. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Cal. It's hot.
Every single show.
I know. I wish one day it'll be like, it's cold.
I know. We've been talking a lot recently about, one day I want to be cold.
Yeah.
That's my dream. We've been talking a lot about Toast of London.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily worth us doing like a segment on the show, but, and of course he's always recording in a studio, and that always puts me in the mind of like a professional studio and how because we have a studio. It's not exactly decked out professionally, like where Kris Carter might, record something, but we've got it all set up, but cooling it, how do pro studios cool it? There must be like sort of a passive system that brings air in and out, or do you, before the talent gets there, do you just crank it like at the beginning of the day and then everybody shows up and you shut it off? Right. Like a fridge that like, the power went out, but it's like my eggs are still, they got a couple hours before things go really bad. I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we'll take them from anybody.
Well, because you have to make it not have any sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we have worked hard to accomplish
difficult.
That. And we could probably do a better job, but I don't know. So in the meantime, we just sit and swelter, but know that, every drop of sweat is for you. It's for you, audience. Seriously, if you have any tips, please. Just Enough Trope on Twitter. Just Enough Trope on Facebook. Yeah, just send them our way. Let's talk about the news. So I'm not sure there's anything really earth-shattering on the nerd news front this week, but there's a couple little bits and bobs we can talk about. Let's start with TV stuff. It looks like, and I think that we'd reported on this earlier, and I thought it was a done deal, but now it's confirmed that Damon Lindelof is working on a pilot for a Watchmen show for HBO.
I heard about this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about Damon Lindelof being the head of this. Sorry, Damon Lindelof.
Well, you don't have to apologize, do you?
I don't know. I feel like I do.
He needs to apologize to you for every ticket you've bought to one of his films and every hour you've spent watching his shows that don't go anywhere.
That's true.
The only thing I can think of is, I got two things I can think of. Do Martians have ears or not? And also, no, like, is he a guy who he can't write an end? Clearly.
Right.
So now he's adapting something. And I know that The Leftovers was adapted, but it was, smaller book and they turned it into a 3-season show. So he's got an end. And he's got an example of, let's not do Squid Death Kills New York or whatever.
Right.
And so that's all wrapped up, because if he doesn't do that, he's probably in trouble, right?
Right.
So he's got an end. He's got the material to adapt. And I'm sure they're going to reach out and take all the Beyond Watchmen stuff. I wish they wouldn't, but they have to blow it up into more than one. You know, it's not a miniseries. It's going to be a maxi series.
Yeah.
But this is just a pilot. So that's all. If all those things are taken care of for him, can he deliver? Will this be okay? This will be all the middle stuff. This will be the Hatch season of Lost. This will be The Constant, which I don't think he wrote, but I'm not sure.
The Sweet Center.
The sweet center. And
the
no
cherry nougat.
Rock in a hole in a cave. None of that stuff. What do you think?
I'm optimistic.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Okay.
About life in general.
All right.
But that's good. Why? Tell me more. Did you watch The Leftovers?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. Heard good things.
I hope that if he has limits, he and like kind of a roadmap on where to go, he'll deliver better.
I think he could. Anything could happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is not. That's not much of a. Put that on a pillow. And then my number 2 is he's never. No, there's not a lot of like humor in this.
No,
but Alan Moore has. The whole point of it is that life is horrible, so laugh at it.
Right.
I mean, that's a gross oversimplification, but that's sort of like the comedian's whole thing. You know, life is ultimately small and pointless, so take pleasure where you can. Here's the modern version. No one exists on purpose. You know, everything's terrible. Let's watch TV. You know, the Rick and Morty version of that.
Right.
That's kind of up his alley. Everything David Lindelof does is depressing. You know, like The Leftovers. One of the reasons I didn't watch it is because, you know, the Hitfix or the critics were just basically quitting the show. They were going like, this show is the most depressing, nihilistic thing I've ever seen. I'm not watching it anymore.
Right.
And you've got, let's go explore space. It's amazing. There's aliens in my eye, and I have a squid baby now. Like everything he does is like this turn for the worse and the bad. Like he took Star Trek films. He took Star Trek. Oh, see, I told you we'd talk about it again. Something that, you know, is ultimately hopeful, and then turned it into RoboCop's trying to kill us with like 72 Virgin missiles and
right.
whatever was happening in Into Darkness.
Yeah.
What do you think about
that? It's, I don't know. It's looking kind of bleak. I'm trying to stay positive, but
yeah.
But you're reminding me of all of his failures, and it's not looking great.
Well, let's move on to something that sounds a little more fun.
Okay.
It looks like True Lies is going to get a TV series on Fox. No real word yet, I think, on the exact outlet, but it is being produced by Fox and by McG.
Okay.
Yeah, I think McG will be set to direct, and Cameron will be on board in a production sort of role.
Okay.
This leads me to announce also, we're still doing TV still, but little movie news, that Cameron is going to be producing a third in his series Terminator film.
Oh, really?
This will be his kind of like Ridley Scott coming back to Alien like he was supposed to.
Okay.
And do like a forget Alien 3, here's the real Alien 3.
Right.
Or like a Bryan Singer, forget everything after Superman 2, like here's the real Superman 3.
Right.
So great precedence. It's worked out great so far. But anyway, Cameron's supposed to be producing a third Terminator film that'll take place after Terminator 2, and it's going to star Linda Hamilton.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You don't seem too excited about it.
I'd be more excited about a return to Beauty and the Beast, starring Linda Hamilton
and
Ron Perlman. But I think they killed her character off because she wanted to leave the show. Because she's a movie star now. And they just turned it into And the Beast.
Oh. ...
And the Beast.
That's terrible.
And no offense to Ron Perlman or Armin Shimmerman, but that's not enough to keep that show going.
No.
I think, except for the fact that Cameron is nuts now, it seems like, I don't know. Get that Terminator series back on track.
I mean, the TV show is great.
Well, that's another thing. Josh Friedman, the guy who did Sarah Connor Chronicles, is supposed to be sort of working on the franchise.
Okay. Well, that's good news. No?
No, it is. It absolutely is.
Okay.
Guess what? So we were talking about Jordan Peele before.
Yes, we were.
And it looks like he will be doing his first TV project on his own. It's part of his recent development deal. And it's going to be called The Hunt. And it's set in 1970s America. And it's about a bunch of people who are hunting Nazis, basically.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's going to be fictitious. I don't think it's based on anything.
Okay.
But it's clearly based on the work of Nazi hunters like Simon Wiesenthal, who went and found these guys in Central America or whatever. We're looking for Mengele or whatever.
Right. The people that escaped kind of after the war and disappeared.
Yes.
So, as it were.
Yes. What do you think about that?
Sounds dark.
Jordan Peele, everybody.
I know.
Yeah. Hopefully he can find a role for Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah.
As a hilarious valet or something at a resort hotel in Argentina where they're trying to find the... Just seems like one of those two. Oh, so now we know who the talented one is. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's like really funny. He's like, funny actor.
He's very funny.
One of those guys seems like he's kind of got it going on.
Yeah. It kind of seems that way.
All right. Just rating people. Just rating the worth of human beings.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk about movies. Looks like Rian Johnson has wrapped production on Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Okay.
Which, I mean, clearly, but I think this just signifies everything's done. Production done, reshoots done. There's probably effects work and stuff in some post that's left to be done. But the reason that this no story is a story is because this guy's the winner. He's like, you pick like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
One of them works out. Great. And
no
after
kidding.
everything else that's happened with Lucasfilm, it seems like this guy's the right choice.
Yeah.
So you got it done.
Yeah. Good
No
job.
drama for your mama, which means that we will almost definitely get at least one, probably 2 trailers before it comes out in December.
Well, that's cool.
Do you want to talk about being excited for Last Jedi?
I'm excited for Last Jedi.
I am too.
I'm excited to see the Star Wars story continue. I like The Force Awakens a lot.
I think this is going to be more of that.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Do you think, well, I say it's more than that or more of that. Do you think that there will be, a dark twist? I am your father.
Ooh, I don't know.
This is the middle chapter. This is what we do.
Yeah. There might be a dark twist. I don't know what it would be, though.
I don't either. But we've definitely, J.J. Abrams, it's littered with mystery boxes, like all over the place. Like,
yeah.
Who's this person's father? What's this guy's name? Who's that? Who's this?
Right.
Han Solo is Snoke.
Right.
All of that.
Yeah, right.
That would be the biggest twist of all.
Yeah, that would be pretty big twist there.
I fell off that thing, it hit my head, and I had a scar on my chin. Now it's on my face. You never thought. So yeah, maybe. Or they shave Chewbacca. That's what he looks like. Chewbacca is Snoke.
Oh my goodness.
Now. Sorry, spoilers. I should have said spoilers before. It looks like Stacy Snyder, who is the chairman and CEO of 20th Century Fox, was talking to Variety about the New Mutants film.
Okay.
That is being directed by Simon Kinberg, and it's coming out, I don't know, next year sometime. Anyway, she says that it's going to be more of it's closer to The Shining than a superhero movie, she said.
Well, that's kind of alarming to me.
Yes.
Why?
Well, you know why. First of all, I'll correct myself and say that it is Josh Boone directing it. Kinberg's directing the X-Force one, I think, or something.
Okay.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's based on the Demon Bear saga. That's why.
Right.
So you read the Demon Bear saga.
Yeah.
As I have. Written by Chris Claremont.
Kind of scary,
art
but...
by Bill Sienkiewicz, right?
Yeah.
Clearly intended to be horrific, too strong, but if you take it literally, containing elements of horror.
I just don't know why we're comparing it to The Shining, per se.
Here's what I think. Let me just speak for an entire studio and their strategy when it comes to marketing their stuff. It's what I just said. I think that they are trying to diversify. So whereas Marvel is content, everybody wants Marvel success. Everybody wants to try and do it differently than Marvel has done, which is to say that, Warner Brothers and DC wants to do it too late or not support it with strong enough material. Marvel is content to give you the exact same movie basically every time, only now Paul Rudd's in it. Only now
True.
Benedict Cumberbatch is in it, but they're still the same visually just desaturated, laser in the sky, snarky one-liners and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think Fox's approach is, let's diversify. So we're going to give you, X-Men is an adventure, like is a, action adventure.
Okay.
Logan and Deadpool are outliers. So Deadpool is a violent R-rated comedy. Logan is an R-rated drama. Fantastic Four is terrible. Fantastic Four, they haven't nailed that one yet. That's probably the problem. And I think that if they go by this, that would be the family film. That's the PG-12, I mean,
right.
Everything's got to be PG-13, but that's the more family-oriented one. There are rumblings of them doing the Fantastic Four kids movie, I think would support my thesis. And so for this, they're like, we need a horror movie on our superhero slate. Could be just the style, could be just the way that, they do business, but I think maybe they don't want to make the same movie over and over again, even though that's exactly what has led Marvel Studios to become
so
dominant
successful.
in the industry and in summer. So, do
you think that horror movies lend itself well to superhero films?
That's a good question, because part of it depends on what you mean by horror movie, or what, if we get to the soul of what a horror movie is. It's people being threatened by something that's more powerful than them.
Right.
And so you don't usually see, superhero movies are power fantasies. So you don't usually see your protagonists be on the wrong end of that.
Right.
I have a solution, which is make a horror movie from the perspective of the criminals that Batman is eliminating one by one and scaring. Because basically when in those scenes where they're getting hunted down one by one, suddenly it becomes a monster movie and Batman's the monster. Other than that, I don't know. I could see this. The only problem is it doesn't seem like a great first chapter. This is the first time we're going to meet the New Mutants. Everybody gets sick of them having to burn the origin movie. So maybe do it right. Very quickly establish who these guys are. Having McAvoy or whoever there will help out. But they're very powerful. They have the overconfidence of youth. And then they start getting taken out one by one by this demon bear thing. And it could work.
Okay.
But just don't come out. Don't just make the soundbite. It's more of The Shining than it is, X-Men Last Stand or whatever.
Right.
That's big shoes to fill.
It is big shoes to fill.
That's a big wheel to be rolling around that hotel. Let's talk another movie story. It looks like Taika Waititi. This is just buzz. Taika Waititi, director of Thor Ragnarok.
Yes.
What We Do in the Shadows, amongst other things, is in talks to do that live-action Akira movie that Jordan Peele isn't doing anymore.
Oh, okay. I still am not 100% sure that this is a good idea, but that's okay.
Miniseries, man, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing a live-action movie, you're just going to take the anime and make it a movie.
Yeah.
And people
like
love
beat for beat.
Right. And people love them. Well, it's already done for you. It's 90 minutes. It's perfect.
Right.
People love the manga. People love the anime. Some people get mad that they don't quite, but most smart people say unadaptable, did their best, turned out great.
Right.
Here's your chance to Watchmen it,
Yeah.
What's Damon Lindelof up to? Oh, wait, he's doing Watchmen. Expand it. Do, 8 episodes.
There you go.
Stretch it out. Let's see every little thing that we get in the manga, which is, 6 volumes.
Okay, that could work.
One more note about movies. Danny Pudi, remember him?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we're going to do that thing where we get it's just two Midwestern white people talking about stuff they don't know. But don't worry, it's cool. We're woke. It's all right. Is there only room for X amount of brown people at a time?
Oh, that's and
he got left behind.
Loaded question.
Because, all his buddies, just Dan Harmon in general, but Joel McHale, clearly, Alison Brie, Donald Glover, they're all off doing projects that are ensemble projects.
Yeah.
It's like this, what's this Nuns in the Woods movie or whatever, it's like everybody is on this thing. He's not friends with anybody? You can't get that guy in there? He's really funny.
He's friends with people.
But is it just we've already got an Aziz Ansari. We've got Jason Mantzoukas is in everything. And maybe they're just snapping all the roles out?
He's really, really skinny.
Oh, You're gonna
I don't know.
the new racism. You did it. That's amazing. He
Great.
comes in. He's like, "What is it? Is it my skin? Is that what it is?" It's like, no, it's fine. It turns out he's too thin. I think Human Giant did this already, didn't they? With the sketch where they're trying to cast actors for the Invisible Man.
Probably.
And so they see a bunch of people, and then and a literal invisible man comes in to read. They're like, "What? That's amazing! You're actually invisible." He's like, "That's right." And it's Tracy Morgan
Oh, okay.
doing the voice. But after the end of the audition, they're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll call you." And he's like, "What? I'm perfect for this role." And they're like, "Oh no, yeah, it's fine." But they don't like him because like his voice is black.
Oh my gosh.
So they're still racist even though they literally can't see him. I don't know how that connects at all. But anyway. That's a sketch that Key and Peele wished they could have done. And probably did in some form or another. But so you think it's a skinny thing. I'm going to stick to my racial thing.
Okay.
And maybe typecasting as well.
Okay.
Because he can do anything.
He can.
I mean, he even proved that when Abed is doing impressions or whatever on Community. Like, he's got a great range.
Yeah.
But his thing is like, strange, skinny Birdman. And so maybe that doesn't fit in a lot of places. I don't know. I could see it in a million places.
I could see it in a million places,
I mean,
too.
even if we were just going to be cynical about it, he could just be that. He could be the IT guy in a bunch of movies. Like, I don't even like saying that, but now I'll go look at his IMDb page, and it's just like full until 2025, and I don't know what I'm talking about. But attention, casting directors. Look up this Danny Pudi kid. He's good.
He is good.
He's not on that Powerless show anymore, so he's free. Check him out. Well, as long as we're talking about movies, let's talk about these trailers. So there's a couple different trailers that have come out recently. Some of them for movies that are coming out soon, some not. But this is all fall, spring-ish type stuff.
Yeah.
Leaving out the area around the holidays.
Yes.
So as you mentioned before, not great, generally. I wouldn't call it a dumping ground necessarily. That's January and like February in the film world. But the first one we're looking at is the trailer for Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider film.
Yes.
What do you think about that trailer? I guess we can give some background as we go, too.
I think it looks enticing.
Do you?
Yeah.
Did you see the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider films?
I did not.
You missed nothing.
But
you didn't miss much.
To me, the Angelina Jolie ones, it's just Angelina Jolie is in a movie.
Well, that's every movie she's in.
Maybe.
Maleficent, whatever. A Mighty Heart.
Right.
Speaking of race in film,
this?
The Power of Jolie makes it, though, even if you're not black, you can play Marianne Pearl. Go ahead. Sorry.
Whereas this, Alicia Vikander actually seems like she's acting. And I mean that in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a face at me. But I mean that in a good way, and I mean that it to me doesn't seem like here is an actor in a movie. It's like here is a movie. And
so she fits into the production.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly what I mean.
I would go along with that. She's a fine actress, and she has won awards that confirm that.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of times, and we've had a lot of opportunities to see her, because she's literally everywhere.
Yes.
I was amazed when she took this on. It's perfect because she's a big thing. They're looking for her. She's maybe looking for a franchise to get hooked into.
Sure.
Because she's been doing a lot of these art films or whatever. So it's a perfect marriage, but she did not need to do this. She could have kept doing whatever forever. And so, back to my original point, I think she is a fine actress. I think she is often not necessarily called on to do much as an actress, though.
I could see that.
Like what was that film? A Royal Affair about the
yes.
Was it Norway or Sweden? I always get those two mixed up, and I really shouldn't because I'm mostly one of those. But anyway, yeah, it was a period drama, and it was the kind of thing where she's the queen or whatever, so kind of stand around and look slightly pained,
right,
and then get real sad at the end when somebody dies or whatever. And
right.
so it's just part of how she looks, and it's just part of the kind of roles that a person her age gets, I think. But this is great, though, because this is a chance she'll hopefully get to do a lot. Again, I felt like in the trailer, it was a lot of her just looking sort of pensive, like when she wasn't getting hit in the back of the head with a gun butt.
Yeah.
But I hope there is a lot of getting hit in the head with a gun butt and a lot of shooting people with arrows. And this, the Tomb Raider is who wouldn't know? Who doesn't know? But she's a kick-ass video game heroine.
Right.
Who burst onto the scene, I don't know, whenever, 1995, 6. And the thing about her was that she was one of the first, no holds barred, straight up female main characters, protagonists in a game. And a lot of people would say that that has to do with her physical assets. But the fact of the matter is that they just wrote this sort of badass chick who was smart because she was an archaeologist, and had a PhD or whatever. She was rich. So she's like, screw you, I'm rich. And she doesn't take any shit from anybody. And she just goes out and shoots people and just does it. And you don't even see that in movies still.
No, you don't.
A lot of the time. So I think it's great. Now, this, and you're probably not familiar, the game was sort of rebooted in like 2013 or so.
Right.
And they came out with this the new Lara Croft, and it was an origin story. So it wasn't just Lara Croft jet sets around the world, meets exciting people and kills them. It's her origin story. So she starts off as this very young, teenager who's on an adventure that she thinks is an adventure and gets in this really weird, like Italian movie kind of situation where she's stranded. She's stranded on an island and guys are this close to raping her for like most of the game. And she has to we see how she gets molded into this badass because she learns these sort of Rambo skills. And it looks like shot for shot or pixel for pixel. That's what they're doing with this. Yeah.
It reminds me of the more recent video game.
And all of my points are long-winded, but which gets me back to my original point, which is I feel like for an action movie and the heroine in an action movie, we see her doing a lot of running away and getting beat up in the trailer where I'm hoping that there will be moments in the movie, her Dutch or John McClane or whatever your movie hero, I used to see you. I hope she gets to do that stuff. They think they can sell it better this way. If I go in and it's all just her cowering from people, I know it's like her origin story where she becomes badass, but come on. And to back my stupid theory up, there's that one little scene at the end of the trailer that doesn't seem to fit with any of the rest where Nick Frost shows up out of nowhere and she's like, these are pretty good guns. I'm going to take some guns.
Yeah.
And that we didn't see that character anywhere else in the trailer. It was all, I got to find my daddy.
Right.
Played by Dominic West. Now, how old am I? Is this the line that I've crossed? Because I see Dominic West. I know he's got to be like late 40s, early 50s. Alicia Vikander's probably early 30s, but playing like teens,
Right.
But I'm like, he's not old enough to be her dad.
No.
Except he totally is. And he's very close to me in age, I bet. And I want to fall off a cliff like the Tomb Raider does. Other than that, any other impressions?
It looks like it could be an exciting film.
Yeah.
And I hope you're right. I hope she does get a chance to actually be the hero and not cower.
It comes out March, I think, of next year, March 16th next year.
Okay.
Again, not great, but that's sort of summer is earlier and earlier every year. So this could be sort of the first salvo, hopefully, in summer. It's got a lot of stars in it, or at least a lot of people you want to see. I like Dominic West, not the best actor, but he's
solid.
Yeah, sure. Walter Goggins, fantastic. Love him.
Right.
Kristen Scott Thomas is in this for some reason, but hey, great. Why not? Yeah, so I feel bad for... and so when they did reboot this, one of the things that they did, the video games, of course, is that they very specifically got an actress to play Lara. Mocap is becoming just as popular in films as it is, or games as films.
Sure.
And so they cast this actress named... it's very British. Camilla Luddington, I think is her name.
Okay.
Who is, she does stuff now. She's just an actress walking around. But she was the new face of Lara Croft. And she's like this, petite sort of brunette like we've got now. And then the time comes to make the feature film, and she's probably like, Yes, I see that hand, Camilla. One moment. But no, they closed the deal with the Oscar winner. So.
Yeah.
So too bad. But anyway, I hope this is good. It's probably not going to be. It's cross-promoted. But so Square Enix, the video game company, has its own movie TV wing now, because of course it does.
Okay.
So they're on this. MGM's on it. Warner Brothers is on it. So that's called splitting the pot up.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Knock, knock on wood. The wood you use to make your bow to shoot a guy in the face with an arrow. Here's hoping. What else did we check out? What are we looking at for trailers here?
We also looked at Isle of Dogs.
Yes.
Which is the new Wes Anderson animated film.
Yes. Stop motion.
Stop motion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Just like the Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yes. This one takes place in Japan in the near future.
Yes. Hi.
There's a sickness that's being carried. Yes.
Dogs are the vector.
By dogs.
Yeah.
Like it's a dog flu. And so they decide that they're going to take this garbage island, like this island made out of garbage,
right.
and they're going to put all these dogs on it.
Yeah.
And isolate them there.
Right. And I mean, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Does the plot really matter?
No,
it doesn't
not
matter
really.
at all.
I mean, that's the main plot.
How much symmetrical quirk is there? And the answer is a lot.
Yeah.
It's got all the hallmarks. We're both having trouble today. It's got symmetry in its cinematography and staging. It's got characters in a monotone voice, like stating their feelings. Like,
yes.
I'm in love. Oh my God, I'm in love. It's got Bill Murray. It's got the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This looks like I don't know. I think doing a stop motion version of Mr. Fox was a stretch.
Yeah.
But this looks like another stretch.
It does.
But a good stretch?
I think it has the potential to be good.
It's got Bryan Cranston.
It does. It's got a lot of great actors in it.
Yeah.
Has Scarlett Johansson in
well,
it.
yeah. It's got, I mean, can't even go through the list, but it's got plenty of people.
Yeah.
The one thing that I am somewhat optimistic about is you've got a movie that is very steeped in, I think he said that he drew, I mean, it's set in Japan,
Yeah.
a future Japan, but just, like next week, set next week.
Right.
And it draws, I think he said, a lot on Akira Kurosawa movies.
Sure.
But I think he's talking more of the like modern ones, like set in the 50s in Japan, not
Sure.
like samurai stuff. And to me it looks like, ukiyo-e print.
Yeah.
Or like Japanese advertising prints,
yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying.
Post-war stuff sort of come to life.
Yeah, muted colors.
Yeah. But still like a sort of like that 60s kind of, a lot of avocado and taupe and
Yes.
and then it stars all these dogs, and there are Japanese characters, and all the dogs are white dudes.
Yep.
But there's a Japanese boy who speaks Japanese that is voiced by a Japanese kid, and you look through the credits and you go Japanese name, Japanese name, Japanese name. So we've done it. We have our dog biscuit, and we're eating it too. It looks like,
Yeah.
because we get around the kind of whitewashing thing by having the dogs are all voiced by American character actors,
Right.
but our Japanese characters will be voiced by actual Japanese people.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people billed in this.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know that all of the American actors are dogs per se.
You hear some, but very little Japanese voice language in the trailer.
Right.
I think that's probably a marketing thing more than anything else.
Right.
They're already asking you to accept a stop motion film by Wes Anderson that's set on a trash island in Japan's future.
Right.
Let's not tell people they have to read.
Right, exactly. But I wonder if there will be more subtitles in it.
Oh, there definitely will.
Okay.
There has to be.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Yoko Ono is in this.
Yeah, I know.
Ken Watanabe is also in this.
Yeah.
As one of the
that's
Japanese
another
actors.
Sure, that's a kick in it too.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
I am too.
This is every single Wes Anderson movie. I think I like pretty much all of his films.
Yeah.
And every single one of them, you have to convert me all over again. Do you know what I mean? Like, Moonrise Kingdom comes out, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to see that.
Right.
And I didn't. And I waited like 4 or 5 years, and I finally saw it like earlier this year, maybe last year. I think it's my new favorite one.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
All right.
I haven't seen Budapest Hotel.
No.
Now I think I'm kind of waiting, like you get a candy or something, and I'm going to have that.
Savor
that
it.
Lindor later. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't wait, and I'm going to devour this like a hungry dog when it comes out. And it will come out March 23rd of 2018. One more film.
Yes.
What's this one? This one is coming out this year.
It is the new Del Toro film.
Yes, The Shape of Water.
Yes.
Which stars Sally Hawkins.
Yes.
And, some other people, which is something I want to talk about. It stars Michael Shannon, Octavia Spencer, and Doug Jones as Fish Guy.
Yes.
In a role that he's played quite a bit for Del Toro, which we may or may not have talked about on this podcast before. But yeah. Can you, just from what we saw in the trailer, summarize what you think the movie's about?
Basically, Sally Hawkins, who is mute and deaf.
Great choice.
So
one of our best living actresses. Let's make sure she can't say a word.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Falls in love with the fish man.
Yeah, I asked for succinct. Nailed it.
She tries to help him escape in some way.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for like a little while.
So Okja with a fish man, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get right into it. This is The Snake in the Grass. My dislike for Del Toro. I don't dislike Del Toro. Let me state that plain.
Okay.
I'm here to bury and not praise him or something, or the other way around. But, and I think you might agree, I guess you can speak for yourself, as we're watching this trailer, once again, I'm like, who's this movie for? I don't mean to be cynical.
I don't know who it's for, honestly.
There are literally two halves of the trailer where it's like, Sally didn't know that she was going to... She's eating lunch and says, oh, here's a sandwich to the fish man. Great. And then like... And so they switches over and it's like, where's the fish man?
Yeah.
We got to get him out of here. Like, who is this for?
I don't know.
It seems like it's a lighthearted romance, and then like when Michael Shannon's on your ass, it's bad news.
Yeah, no kidding.
Ask the citizens of Metropolis. So.
It's like we have the romance for the ladies, and we have the badassness for
So you think
the
it's
guys.
a 4-quadrant thing. You think that it's an attempt to reach everybody.
Yes.
I just think that Guillermo del Toro, I think, is an amazing designer. He's, I guess I can't rate him as a writer because I don't really like his films, but I think as a creator, I like the things that he comes up with.
Sure.
But I think he should be like this impresario who comes up with this amazing stuff and then hands it to other writers and directors to adapt or bring to the screen, because I don't think that he's particularly talented as a director. Often I don't really like his scripts all that much. His Spanish language stuff is way better than his English stuff, so maybe it's a language thing, although he talks fine. I don't know, whatever. And I think it's that he just doesn't, he makes no concession to tone or pacing or whatever when he does a script. He just goes, I got this idea. It's a mute lady that falls in love with a fish man, and they're running from the government because that's what happens when you fall in love with a fish man in the 60s. And there you go. So anyway, that's my opinion. Here's my other opinion, or my question. As far as the casting goes, you've got a couple names in this.
Yes.
And what I want to know is, are the names like the studio like filling in slots or forcing quote unquote stars on him, or did he pick these people because they are the people that he wants for these roles? Because Michael Shannon has played this role a bunch of times.
This is true.
He is a figure of authority who is trying to stop something like amazing or beautiful from happening or whatever.
Yeah.
Even if it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt just doing sweet jumps off of cars downtown New York. That must have been what I was talking about. We've got a character who's clearly the facilitating friend who's like, you go, girl. And it's Octavia Spencer. That's all she's ever done.
Yeah.
That's the only role she's ever played.
Right.
And then you've got Richard Jenkins as the kooky old man.
Which how many
every
times
single
has
one
he
of those
played
people
that?
is straight from central casting.
Yeah.
Well, except, I mean, they're stars, but I mean, they're right on the nose as far as the casting goes.
Yeah.
So do you think that Del Toro was like, give me Richard Jenkins? Or did you think he said, I have an idea for this character. He's like this. And then the studio person's like, well, clearly this is a Richard Jenkins role. And every single one of them said yes, because they're all want to work with Del Toro.
I'd like to think that Del Toro like handpicked all of them. I don't know why. I just would like to think that.
So he's not very imaginative when it comes to casting. Doesn't he have? Where's Maribel Verdú? You know, he gave her a great role in Pan's Labyrinth.
Sure.
That's another question. Haven't seen the film yet, so I can't begin to totally shit on it yet. But is Sally Hawkins, who... Okay, a lot of talk about age. And then wait till we get to the interview with Kris. Who's my favorite actress, I think. She's my age.
Sure.
We're the same age. So I'm not... No aspersions cast. But is she supposed to be playing... Was this intended as a role where... Because she can play... She looks younger than she is.
Yes.
But she doesn't look like Alicia Vikander. Is she supposed to be like a young, like, oh, I don't know anything about the world. I fall in love with the fish man. Or is she supposed to be like, oh, I'm, kind of getting up there and I never found love.
I think I'm kind of getting up there.
Okay. All right.
That's
Well,
what
then
I think.
I don't have any problem. So anyway, the Shape of Water, another title I feel like doesn't really translate.
No.
It comes out December 8th because they are going to shoot for every single award, and it's already getting a lot of pre-buzz, and it's probably going to be huge, whether I like it or not.
We'll the Shape of something.
Yes, it's already at 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
oh wow,
that's pretty great, huh? It won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Awards, and I'm sure it was a selection at Cannes and all that good stuff. So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll definitely have a review of that when it comes out.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Did you get the trailers are over. Now the movie can begin. All right, so let's start our comic book club for this week. Just want to cut in. You thought we were done with the Star Trek news, but breaking news. Anthony Rapp, yeah, that's right, Mark from Rent,
yes,
who is playing Lieutenant Stamets on the new Star Trek Discovery show, liked my tweet.
Oh my gosh.
That I made in response to him. There's this big controversy, long story short, about whether the show takes place in the Kelvin timeline, which is the movie's timeline, I can't see anything, and the old, TV timeline. And he finally came out and just said, yeah, well, basically his tweet was like, yes, it takes place in the real timeline. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
In reply, I tweeted a picture of Stephen Toast going, yes. Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. And so he liked it. So anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah, great for me. Anyway, moving on. We're talking about JLA.
Yes.
Issues.
Yes.
Okay, every single time now.
Sorry.
That's why I was doing Hiya before. We're talking about JLA issues 1 through 5 of, this is technically volume 3.
Yeah.
And it came out in the beginning of 1997. So new year, new JLA.
Yes. Grant Morrison relaunched JLA.
He did. Into the stratosphere.
Yes.
Up to this point, so JLA has always been a thing, clearly.
Yes.
In DC comic books. But I think, like a lot of things in the 90s, you needed an edge.
Reboot.
A little something
Push.
else. Yeah. Superman's got a mullet now.
That's right.
They need to turn up the juice on a lot of this stuff. And so they turned to the guy who was famous for that.
Yeah.
Even before he was flipping the apple cart on Batman or X-Men. This was kind of one of his first, things that he really, turned it up.
Sure.
Got his kind of mainstream comics start on Animal Man, where he really turned it up. And so, yeah, it's like, let's bring him in. This is the guy. He's going to do it. He's going to make JLA relevant, for the 90s.
Right.
And I think that, well, first of all, should we just, can you give me a plot summary of what happens basically in these 5 issues?
Basically, there's this group of alien characters that show up. I forget what they call themselves now. Help me out here.
The Hyper Team.
Yeah. Anyways,
the Hyperloop. Elon Musk and the Hyperloop guys.
They pose themselves as being like these new titans of Earth and like basically being superheroes who can save the planet from ourselves.
Right.
Because the planet is dying, you know, and they're going to make Sahara, the desert, a lush
right.
green Eden.
Right. But not everything is what it seems.
No. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, right.
So they turn out to be evil. Shocker.
I feel like they don't try to stretch that out too far, though.
No. The tower, I believe it's the tower.
Well, okay, so interestingly enough.
Pre-tower?
Yeah, it is pre-tower because what you and I would know of as the Justice League Watchtower makes its debut in the fourth issue of this. Yeah.
Okay. So this is pre-tower. They're kind of satellite in space, which I'm not sure what they called it at this time.
Satellite.
Okay.
The Justice League satellite.
Where they would keep watch on things, got attacked. And it was attacked, they believed, by these people. And then they have this great panel where they're all kind of present and they're talking about what happened, and Batman is like, this means war. And it's just kind of great, and I think it's it really illustrates the series well.
Yeah. He did a lot, Morrison, to say, I mean, he's always been this sort of outsider, you know, as far as the JLA is concerned, but Morrison really helped to strengthen and continue that idea of like, I worry about Gotham. Like, I don't care about this stuff.
Well, and that's so Batman.
Yeah, and the whole thing where, oh no, which is now every single issue of JLA, but like, oh, Superman's unconscious and Wonder Woman's tied up and the entire league is down. Flash is running super fast or he'll explode.
Yes.
And what do we do? I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And then like Batman's, of course, has got some plan where he fixes everything.
Well, and like one of the main bad guy is all like, he's just one man. He's just one man. And he keeps saying that, repeatedly.
Right.
Like,
Protex of the Hyper Clan. That's
yes.
what they're called. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've got that great scene, like I mentioned before, where these guys all have, and well, spoilers obviously for the whole, you know, series, but they don't know why, but they've all got the powers of Superman.
Yeah.
And they don't like fire. I wonder
what's going on there.
But anyway, yeah. So they've all taken all the Justice League out except for Batman, who's playing Crash, and they figure he's dead. And then
they just assume
they're like, wait a minute, something's going on in the bowels of the facility. So they send a guy down, and that guy doesn't come back.
Yep.
And they're like, he's just a man. You guys go after him. And they go down there, and then we get that scene that I described where they're like, so what's going... Oh, my God! And like the one guy's like hanging from a rope, you know.
Yes.
And then, of course, later on, it's revealed, oh, they're all White Martians. That makes sense.
Yes.
Which, you know, like John, even though he's a Green Martian.
Yeah.
Everything can do the Carl Lumley thing every time.
Yeah.
They've got all the powers of Superman, basically, which is bad news. And so they're going to gang up on him. And he's like, what was it you guys don't like again? Oh, yeah, fire. And suddenly it's all, you know, fire. So you got three guys that are like, no. And he's like, all right, let's begin. And he kicks the living crap out of them. You probably recognize elements of this in the JLA cartoon.
Yeah, I do, for sure.
And in fact, the first sort of, I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes where they get together in the very first season of Justice League, it's drawn from a lot of stuff, like a lot of episodes of Justice League are, but it's sort of like this. You know, it's a White Martian invasion of the Earth.
Yep.
They use mind control and stuff to like kind of take everybody out. And of course, Batman is all by himself.
Yes, as he does.
Because everybody underestimates him because they don't read comic books on Mars, I guess.
Yeah.
And they show up as this like, we're the Hyper Clan. We all have like varying, very complicated 90s costumes.
Yes.
And varying powers and origin stories.
Come in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah. And is that like, do you think Grant Morrison's sort of comment on like 90s superheroes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're definitely kind of shaped to be like another JLA. Their splash page when they show up is very superhero-like.
Yeah.
And they're all posing in their various
costumes. But it's funny because, like, and this is why I brought it up. It's the 90s, so I can't tell if that happened now. That would certainly be a comment on something. If you're reading The Authority, or like Planetary, and a bunch of like guys that looked a lot like the Avengers showed up, and were like, ugh, Warren Ellis is doing a thing.
Right.
But I don't even know if Morrison was even doing a thing back then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why it becomes fascinating to read. I should mention that the art is by Howard Porter and John Dell as well.
Okay.
Who, I know Porter's still doing things today, but he was one of those like 90s guys.
Sure.
And the art is super 90s in this. Like it's a lot of that kind of early days of computer color separation. So everything just looks real comic booky.
Yes.
They hadn't quite figured it out to the point where they could just make it a lot more subtle or kind of inviting.
Or
it's just
saturated.
like everything's real. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of what I think of like the 90s version of like the early 40s, like full color type
for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Diana's hair is all feathered and
well, yeah. Yeah, 90s.
Yeah.
And I wonder what the commentary is, because these guys show up and I don't know what's their plan. Like their plan is just to get everybody on their side by pretending by undermining the JLA.
Yes.
And of course, they, like you said, they plant the Sahara Desert, and Superman's like, okay, well, I mean, we thought of that, but like, it's not like a desert's something bad. It's just a biome. You can't just say no more deserts.
How can you really change a desert?
People are like, shut up, Superman.
I know.
Your hair looks stupid. And then it turns out they were just trying to mind control people with satellites. So I felt like altruism is bullshit. It was like the beginning of the commentary, but then it was like, nah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
They're just bad guys anyway.
Yeah.
Like, why did they show up as the HyperClan at all, except comic book?
Well, I guess it was easier for them to get mind control over the humans if they showed up as superheroes.
That's true. They had to build these big, like, towers.
Yes.
They call them watchtowers.
Yeah.
So they are in prison, but they sued the JLA for rights over that name. Yeah, maybe that was easy to do because people are like, oh, yeah, that's a good thing. We want this thing.
Right.
Because you're going to protect us.
Right.
The characters that we see in this are pretty much what you'd think of as classic JLA, with a couple exceptions, mostly just in the actual given names of the characters and not necessarily in the roles that they play.
Yeah.
But, we're looking at a lineup of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, GL, Aquaman, and Martian Manhunter. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty standard.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. A lot of this served as a basis for what they were looking to do in the Justice League cartoon show.
Sure.
Of course, they swapped out Aquaman as a quarantine member for
Hawk Girl.
Literally because they wanted to add diversity.
Sure.
And I don't think we need a girl.
That's not a bad thing.
And we need a Hispanic person.
Yeah.
And for all the people who go that affirmative action is stupid, you got Hawk Girl.
Yeah.
You got the best character from Justice League out of doing that.
I agree.
So
100%.
I'm all in. Yeah.
And plus Aquaman is kind of like Batman in that he's like, I don't need the JLA. And he's like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I heard the call, but I ignored it.
Right. It's all part of the Peter David's
we don't need two Batman on the team.
attempt to make Aquaman cool, which it's never going to work. But they put a lot of Namor in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments? I got a ton. I'm trying to space them out in between years.
I think it's very reminiscent of what the TV show ends up being. I love the TV show so much.
Yeah.
That I've often wanted to read about the JLA in comics.
You literally can.
And
Justice League comic book is probably still going right now.
But it's like, I don't know where to start. It's kind of overwhelming. And like,
it's literally for kids. You can just pick up any issue.
Okay. But I don't know if I'll like it or not.
You will. I have a bunch of them.
Okay.
All right. Questions answered.
Okay.
Problem solved.
I just wish Hawk Girl was in them.
She is. Well, she's not in these, but she is in the actual Cartoon Network book.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a big part of that book.
Okay.
I'll go get him right now.
Okay.
Let's hit pause. No,
All
we'll do
right.
it later. Anyway, I like the fact that we got to see some other leaguers before we get, because remember, this is bringing the main team back. Before this point, early 90s, definitely the 80s, Justice League was mostly like Keith Giffen taking side characters and making like a thing out of them. You know, it wasn't like the big guys. And this is,
Sure.
you know, Morrison rebooting with all the big guys. But we kind of see the remnants of that as the satellite is destroyed. And then I think it's Obsidian and not Fire, Ice, I guess, and Metamorpho all trying to escape from the exploding satellite.
Right.
And insofar as a guy who is just a collection of elements can, Rex dies. Metamorpho dies.
Yeah.
Supposedly. But he gets a great scene where you could tell that Morrison likes Metamorpho and really wanted to show off his powers. Because a lot of people think, oh, he's a guy who turns to gas or whatever. But
right.
He's going through all the ways that he can try to save them, and he makes a shell around them. And then he's also inside the shell. He's using his molecules to create oxygen so they can breathe during re-entry. And then while they're re-entering, he's like, do I know how to turn into Teflon or something? I'm trying to find some way to get through re-entry.
Yeah.
And then once they get in there, he starts filling it up with fluid so they won't like squish when they like impact with the earth. And
right.
Yeah, it's just, that's like, I like comics that do that. It isn't just, I mean, I like guys that fly around and punch people too, but
right.
That's the kind of thing that James Kakalios could get behind.
Yes.
Although he's a physicist and not a chemist. But still, it's all physics. Everything's
shows
physics.
that Morrison was thinking about it.
Yeah, he definitely was. Sometimes that pays off better than others, because I think, you know, the trope that he helped, and here we are, tropes, if the trope that he helped really solidify, where Batman takes everybody out,
yeah,
everybody could write that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's neat, but it's not really all that great. There was a really great part, and he does a good job, I think, of reintroducing everybody. Of course, this is now a league with, this is Wally West Flash.
Yep.
This is Kyle Rayner Flash, and he does a lot to kind of establish them as bros, like Barry and Hal were.
Yeah.
The whole GL Flash team is like a big team, and there's a great scene where just because they are Superman powered and can do a lot of stuff doesn't mean that they're necessarily better than our heroes.
Right.
Which actually kind of writes them into a corner a little bit. The scene I'm going to describe, Flash totally outflashes their speedster, but then later on, oh, you captured me. It's like, what? Now he's just captured. Why didn't you do that to all of them? But there's this, they do one of those great speedster fights where they're just running around the earth like over and over again. And then there's another 4 or 5 page battle where Flash figures out, all right, this guy's fast, but he's not as fast as me. And I can begin to go the speed of light, and like things will look different. Like I can kind of get around him without him knowing.
Right.
And then it's like, I could, so Barry was always like trying to teach me like how to use my powers better. And he'd always, have these little flash facts or whatever.
Yes.
And I never really paid attention. But now it's like, if I do this, I can get ahead of him. I could hit him 1,000 times. And at this speed, I'll just hit him once. And just bam, knocks this guy out. And he's going about 7 miles a second. The guy like leaves orbit and then like crashes back down in Africa somewhere. And he's like, that's escape velocity. Flash fact. And then he gets captured. Like, what? It's dumb. Flashes, yeah.
It is dumb.
Well, whatever. That's the problem with JLA stories, is that every single time, and the TV show had this problem too. It's one of the reasons I think they shifted to like Unlimited, where you had like the side characters, also just storytelling potential, but like you have to find a way to knock out the 7 most powerful people in the world every single week.
Right.
And it's one thing if you're going back in time, because Vandal Savage has killed Hitler and has taken over World War II.
Yeah, which is huge.
But otherwise, it's like, oh, we get together. Oh, no, Brainiac's just got a thing that makes you all fall down. Or you're all tied up now. And the comic book just has that problem a lot. I think that Morrison tries to solve that by, in later issues, we have, like, they're fighting literal angels. That's a thing.
Okay.
He also created a character that shows up, I don't know, issue 12, 13 or something, named Prometheus, who has spent like his entire life, being like the anti-justice. He's got all this technology and these plans to, specifically counteract all the Justice Leaguers.
Okay.
So a lot of his writing was like trying to get around that problem. That's the first 4 issues. The 5th issue is one of several sort of one-shot things that kind of go. And this was clearly a passion project, I think, for him, like the 5th issue.
Yeah.
Care to try to describe what happens in it?
there are these two bad guys, Ivo and
Professor Ivo and T.R. Morrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They invent this superhero named Tomorrow Girl. And she's
Woman.
Tomorrow Woman, excuse me. I was stand corrected.
Yeah.
She's an android, and she's got this high-tech brain. She's super smart, and she can make her own decisions, which makes her kind of dangerous and unpredictable.
Right. And this is all into so the League is now eliminated the Martian threat.
Yes.
They are they're testing out new members, basically.
Yes, they're
and there's this
doing open auditions.
Yeah, and there's this audition scene where all the 90th of the 90th people show up to be on the League.
I know.
It isn't like Blue Beetle's like, oh, you guys are... My chair's still around here somewhere, right?
Right.
It's, it's like Damage and Hitman and Guy Gardner Warrior shows up and all these people.
Was it like Hitman that's like the biker dude or who's
Hitman
kind
is
of like...
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess he looks like a biker, yeah. But
He it's like, oh, I got to see Wonder Woman with my X-ray vision. My life is complete.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay.
Just shoot him out of a torpedo tube and be done with that guy. And like Artemis, the 90s Wonder Woman is there. And so, yeah. Yeah, so basically, but then, so the idea is that she has this device inside of her that's an electromagnetic like bomb that will basically kill the Leaguers.
Right.
And so they've infiltrated her. Morrow and Evo have infiltrated her into them. But she's just supposed to like pretend to be like a hero, but she sort of develops emergently her own sort of personality, and they fight this thing that's never really, it's a very Morrison villain. It's just called If, and it's like this sort of electromagnetic sort of force or something, and it turns out her bomb or whatever can perfectly, stop whatever that thing is. And so she does, and she sacrifices herself to stop this thing. And the Leaguers didn't even know that she was a robot. I don't think.
No, I don't
and
think so.
So at the end, they're like really sad about her sacrifice. And Morrow, who is kind of good, kind of bad, it kind of rubs it in Evo's face that, he could make something that could, create itself as a hero.
Right.
And at the end, they start their bookend where at the beginning of the issue, they're burying Rex, or what's left of him.
Yes.
And at the end, they're burying the robot. And he's like, the priest is like, I've never buried a machine before. Superman's like, you didn't today.
Right.
You
like,
still
don't
haven't.
call her a machine.
Right, yeah.
Like, she was so much more than that.
Nice little vignette, nice little one shot,
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah. And in this issue, it's Superman Blue.
Yeah. What is that?
Thanks for asking. So Superman died, right? That was in like 92 or 3. The death of Superman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so he came back, and DC's like, all right, well, that was a good cash grab. What else can we do? Let's turn Superman's powers freak out. And suddenly he turns into a blue person. Oh, he can still turn back into Clark. Don't worry. But when he uses his powers, he's blue.
Great.
And now his powers are electricity powers.
Okay.
A shrug doesn't show up on a microphone. And then it gets worse. Later on, he splits into two people. So he becomes Superman Blue and Superman Red.
No.
Yep.
Both electricity?
Yep.
Okay.
And they're like, well, I'm taking Lois out. No, I'm taking Lois out. Okay, so this and a story about Jimmy Olsen and a gorilla would have been one issue in the Mort Weisinger era. Instead, you guys made this like 9 months of people just going, why? Why? Who cares? But, this happened around that time, and so, they included it in. And yeah, so that's, you got to do what you got to do.
Well, I like... your shrug that doesn't show up on pod.
Your fart doesn't either.
No, like, they have roll call at the beginning, and they're like, Superman? ? And they show him as Superman Blue.
Yeah. So anyway,
yep.
Would you recommend this?
I would recommend this.
Yeah.
I thought it was entertaining, and it's well done.
Yeah, I would agree. This is I would not often recommend a lot of 90s comics. Well, that's a loaded statement, but I wouldn't. My recommendations generally wouldn't come in a list of top 10 like from the 90s.
Okay.
But this is definitely the best of a very famously kind of weird, uneven time for the industry.
Sure.
So extreme. But at least Morrison gets a chance to kind of poke fun at that, with the hyper clan.
I know.
So, first of all, they got clan right in their name. I don't know if you want to go with that, or until you wait till they see their hoods on their helmet. Costumes.
What do you think about John, almost betraying them?
And there's actually an episode of Justice League where John basically he betrays the League. And he comes right back. And then one time, Shayera lets an entire race enslave humanity, and she gets thrown out forever. I'm fine with him almost. In fact, I like the fact, and again, I don't think Morrison thinks he's fooling anybody. I hope not, because it's like a totally open secret. But of course they would reach out to him.
Yeah.
And I think that John is probably my favorite leaguer, I think.
Okay.
Just period. I think John would hear them out because that's the kind of person he is. Now, you can go with some of the stories they've done recently where, mind control or not, he's like, I was never a human. He turns his back on, his Earth heritage, and he's like, I'm a Martian now, and I'm going to wear black and look evil. It's like, that I'm not into.
Okay.
Don't do that. But yeah, he's the last of his kind.
Yes.
Whenever Kryptonians show up, Kal-El has to, not me, because he will eventually have to punch them into space or send them to the Phantom Zone.
Right.
And he has to wrestle with, these are the last people. I was supposed to be the last one, and I finally found some more.
Right.
So give John a chance to do that. In fact, they didn't do that enough in this.
Yeah.
That's my answer. Who's your favorite leaguer? Well, Hawkgirl.
Hawkgirl for sure.
All right, but then you're famously into Hawkgirl. Pick somebody else.
Batman.
Dumb.
You asked.
All right, well, that's my second choice, too. So we're simpatico on that. So that's it. You can find this, like a lot of the stuff that we read, anywhere, possibly in your own long boxes. But yeah, Volume 3, JLA, Grant Morrison. Check it out. All right, so next week on Comic Book Club, I know, this is a big deal. Blade Runner is coming out soon.
That's right.
Comes out on the 6th of October. We will have a review of the film on our show for that week. And also possibly, so I don't want to overpromise, so I'm not going to say who it is, but we'll have a special celebrity guest to talk about Blade Runner with us. So we want to read something that is sort of flavored in that direction as we go into that. So I thought that we would read a little comic book by Image Comics called Tokyo Ghost.
Okay.
This is I love talking about cyberpunk, and we will over the next two shows. But it really is just like a dead genre. It's like talking about ether ships or something like that, or like Edgar Rice Burroughs novels, Lost World movies or books. That genre dead. Ask Andrew Stanton, and the people who made John Carter. That doesn't exist anymore. And cyberpunk is very much of its time, but I think a lot of those elements have led to other things, like, for instance, Batman Beyond.
Okay.
Which is like Batman plus cyberpunk,
sure.
And 9 Inch Nails thrown in. And so Tokyo Ghost is a Rick Remender and Sean Murphy book. Always great when those guys get together. That tells it, well, I can't even describe the story. Doesn't really matter, but it's set in a future Tokyo, and we're going to read it. So how about the first 3 issues of Image Comics' Tokyo Ghost? If you want to read along with us, that's what you're looking at. And we'll be doing Tokyo Ghost next time on Comic Book Club. Well, now that Comic Book Club is over, let's get to our interview with Kristopher Carter, who also worked on Justice League, who we've been talking about for the last, half an hour, as well as Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Ben 10, Avengers Assemble. I think I do this in the interview, so I won't waste your time now, but he is a composer with a long, long list of credits. Here's our interview. Well, our guest today is an Emmy Award-winning composer who has worked for over 20 years, composing music for film and television, most notably in the field of animation, contributing music to Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, Teen Titans, Ben 10, Avengers Assemble, Young Justice, Batman and Harley Quinn, and the upcoming Batman vs. Two-Face film. His list of credits goes on and on. Kristopher Carter, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. You were a guest of honor at CONvergence this year. Was this your first CONvergence?
It was, and I have to say that after my experience there, it will definitely not be my last. You guys know how to throw a great con.
Now, you are from Texas way back, is that right?
It is, and when you're talking about being a composer for over 20 years, I'm only 25, so I started.
Oh, right. You're a prodigy.
No, I mean it's kind of crazy to see the 20 years have gone by, more than. But yeah, I grew up in Texas, in West Texas, a town called San Angelo, which is tiny and no major freeways go through it, so you have to want to go there.
Right.
But it was wonderful, because there, in addition to what you'd expect of Texas with cowboys and lots of sheep and cattle and horses, but there was a symphony there and a lot of people that were into all kinds of music. And so growing up, I knew that music was going to be something very special to my life. And by the time I went to college in Dallas at the University of North Texas, which is actually in Denton, just north of Dallas, I knew that it was going to be pretty much what I was going to devote my life to. In being around all these amazing musicians and in the beginning of the writings that I was doing, being able to communicate through music is something that really kind of struck me. And when I realized that as a film composer, you can write music, tell a story, and collaborate with all kinds of amazing artists, I thought, oh man, this is where I've got to go.
Well, it's the 25th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series this year, which was one of your first composing gigs. And I've read that you were one of the youngest people to compose for the animated series of Batman. How old were you?
I actually was 22, so a little more than 5. But I literally did graduate from college, and I packed up everything in the car that I had and drove to Los Angeles. Before I graduated, I had met Shirley Walker, who is a very, very famous woman composer who was the supervising composer of Batman the Animated Series.
Right. And
right out of college, as I graduated, she said, I'd had a chance to meet with her through her son, Ian, who's actually my age. We went to college together, and was gracious enough to open the door to meet his mom. And I was able to share with her some of the work that I had done in college. And she said, as soon as I graduated, well, come out to LA. I want to put you to work. And of course, it was making coffee and sending faxes. And unfortunately, I was dreadful at making coffee. So she said, well, we better put a movie into composing.
Get some music out of him.
But, so I came out working on the Batman the Animated Series under Shirley. She had a very established style, and also she had the trust of Warner Brothers and the producers that every score, even if she allowed young composers to work on it, was going to be of a high quality. So everything had to go through Shirley. But she used the show as this incredible opportunity for young composers to have, many of them, including myself, their first real credit in Hollywood. And I think over the course of the series, maybe there would have been 25 or 30 different people that worked on the show under her, recording with an orchestra at one of the big scoring stages with the top musicians in town. And it was just an incredible experience, way to kind of jump in. So yeah, when I was a bit of a, well, I still am a bit of a rocker. I had kind of long hair at that time when I got out of college, because I, like everybody else of my age, was going to be the next Bon Jovi.
Of course.
And it didn't work out that way at all. But when I got up on the podium to conduct my first score, and I look around, and these musicians are, many of them old enough to be my parents or grandparents, and they said, oh my God, who's this young kid with the long hair? Oh, what are we in for? And I conducted my first cue, and when I gave the cutoff, everyone was smiling. And it's like they liked what they heard. They understood that I was not just the long-haired rocker. I actually did know how to work with the orchestra, and we hit it off. And it was that feeling, that acceptance from these incredible musicians was pretty darn cool.
That's awesome. I wish you'd stop throwing up the devil horns, though. It doesn't really fit what they're doing. That had to be intimidating to move directly into that, but it sounds like you had a lot of support, and it seems like you left college and went right into another school of sort of learning how to put all this together.
Totally was. I actually finished my bachelor's degree, and I was on the track to go ahead and do a master's in music when Shirley offered this opportunity. And I know my parents said, well, why don't you go ahead and get your master's and then see where things are going? And I said, Mom and Dad, this opportunity is opening. You got to jump through that door because it may or may not come around again. And I tell you what, give me a couple of years. I'm going to try it. If this music thing doesn't work out, I will then have tried it and I'll know. But fortunately, I was able to kind of stick around. And when my parents saw that not only was I sticking around, but actually making a living and supporting myself, as opposed to being having to ask for their support. Of course, they were totally supportive at that point.
Yeah. The Batman series has such an incredibly distinctive musical quality. You've got the initial theme by Danny Elfman and then the work by Shirley Walker. When you're working on something and composing for something like Batman, is it a process of taking those original themes and trying to build on them, but you're still staying within the musical vocabulary of the series? Absolutely.
And Batman the Animated Series was very much a show. The style of the music was one where they called what are called leitmotifs. It's not L-I-G-H-T, L-E-I-T.
Right.
It's German. Anyway, I'm sure you know, but not everybody would know that there's a specific melody that you associate with every character. And Shirley created this entire catalog for every single character on the show. And so when there was a new episode, we would sit down with her and we would talk about, okay, well, this episode features Catwoman, and here's the Catwoman theme. And you've listened to what I do for the show. This is Shirley. You've listened to what I do for the show, and you need to write music that is not really so much echoing yourself, Kris, as it is echoing the work that I do. And you will use these melodies so that the audience will maintain this connection to the character, and then life is good. And before once the music is written, before the recording sessions, before any of that happened, we would sit down with her with these sketches where we kind of a musical shorthand of what the music is, and she would sit at the piano and play it just at sight reading it with never having seen it before. And we would talk about, okay, well, maybe this section here, it's going to be a little too busy. There's too much orchestra going on because it'll get in the way of what's happening with the dialogue. Mm-hmm. And, you can't be scary here because we don't know that this is the villain. So there's so many things about telling the story and about how to work with dialogue and all these things that you have to do as a film composer. And so it absolutely was a master's in film scoring in like a real world setting.
Yeah.
It was a lot like drinking from a fire hose, to be honest. There's so much stuff that traditionally I think film composers did. And she was very big on tradition. Even when we moved into Batman Beyond and it was synthesizers and guitars and drums and all that kind of stuff, we were still writing with a kind of an old school film scoring sensibility of telling the story with the music. And she was really big on that's the music's most important job, is to share that story with the audience and kind of lead them through the experience.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about those shows is that leitmotif, which comes from like opera originally, right, or classical music?
Sure. Yeah, I think the Richard Wagner, who wrote a bunch of the Ride of the Valkyries and all this stuff.
Right.
I want to say that that word is most strongly associated with him because it totally was. Siegfried comes on screen and here's Siegfried's theme, and not on screen, comes on stage.
Right.
And yeah, it was very much kind of an immovable force. When you have this character or this person's important, you're going to hear that music.
And it fits the sort of operatic world of superheroes as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I always liked how it really keeps the show grounded, too, because they're superheroes, so they're going to go to the future, or maybe they'll time travel to the Old West, but you'd get sort of a version of that theme sometimes with maybe a more rustic feel if they're in the Old West, like a whip crack or something like that.
Oh, that approach actually was something that we carried on. We did Batman and then the Superman animated series and Batman Beyond with Shirley. Mm-hmm. After that, before we did Justice League, Shirley made the decision that she wanted to kind of focus on doing music for feature films. And so she stepped away from Warner Brothers Animation and turned those shows essentially over to myself and my two partners, Michael McQuistion and Lolita Ritmanis. And when we started on Justice League, we absolutely kept – it was also a very leitmotivic series.
Yeah.
And Lolita wrote the Justice League theme. And on a two-parter called The Once and Future Thing – They go back in time, and it's a story where they bring in Jonah Hex too.
Right.
But there's a scene where all the heroes in kind of their Western gear are walking towards the camera, reminiscent of the main theme. And so I totally did an Ennio Morricone arrangement of Lolita's Justice League main theme, and so we were totally. It almost becomes a game. It's like, how can I take this simple melody and squeeze every little bit of musical utility out of it in all these different ways, so that you kind of, the people that are more kind of tuned into what the music are doing will be like, oh my God, it's the Justice League theme, or it's, but it's turned on its head and upside down, and the kind of thing that really, as a composer, you just totally sink your creative teeth into.
And it pays off totally for the audience. I remember there's a scene, I think near the end of the original run of Justice League, where Brainiac and Luthor like summon the Justice Lords, and they pop out, and there's like this kind of dark minor key bummer rendition of the Justice League theme that really just like fits them as they, oh crap, it's like the evil Justice Lords.
Yes, exactly. No, it's totally right.
When you started, did you have any idea how big Batman the Animated Series or DC Animated would become?
I know that my partners, Michael and Lolita, they were actually the first two people that Shirley brought on as kind of apprentices under her on Batman the Animated Series. And then there were all these other people that kind of worked through the system. And then I came in right at the very, very end. They definitely didn't know what Batman the Animated Series was going to be. It was just an amazing opportunity to work with Shirley. And it's Batman. I mean, it doesn't get much cooler than that.
Yeah.
On my end, though, I was in college when it first started. And it was like required watching in the dorm. Anytime it was on, myself and all my classmates were glued to the TV.
Sure.
And I think we, as fans, had a definite idea this was something pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
That Batman the Animated Series would become as iconic as it has, and it really has. That's just luck of the draw to have this incredible fortune to work on something that has happened with. But yeah, we knew it was special. Definitely didn't know it was going to end up being kind of the yardstick by which animated series would be judged so many years later.
Absolutely. I'm really curious because you've been doing this for a little while, like you said, since you were 5. And what are the tools that you use, and how have they changed over time?
Technology.
It's changed everything, I'd assume.
Yeah. Shirley was a big proponent, as I said, of kind of the old school way of doing things. We would actually, and I did this as well, we would sit at the piano with a big piece of music paper and a pencil and
Sure.
write that way. And that's all that it was. And I mean, people like Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams, that's still how they write, because that's all the only way they've ever done it. We were kind of the last generation of people that were into this kind of old school way. I don't think many people do that anymore, write with a pencil on paper. Gradually, because something about film music, it has to happen at precisely the right time. This door opens and the music goes da-da. You have to to have a timing. It's just down to the millisecond so that the music happens at the right time. So one of the easiest ways to do that is computers. And so we started using computers to help with that timing. And then you would actually create a version of the music using just synthesizers so that the filmmakers can get an idea of what the music is going to sound like before you have the orchestra. That was called the preview. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, now I don't just have to use the music to help the timings. I have to know how to make, using just a computer, make it sound like an orchestra. And then after Batman the Animated Series, a lot, especially in animated television, there weren't the financial resources that there were in the past to actually hire an orchestra anymore. So now I'm not just writing the music in the computer and making a version of it. I'm actually having to create the music that will be in the final movie just using synthesizers.
I see. Okay.
And kind of there was a certain point at which I stopped doing the pencil sketch and just kind of writing it in my head and then performing it, because it's like, well, if I have to end up creating this music using synthesizers, it's kind of an extra step to have to sit there and write it all out by pencil.
Right. You're using the oldest technology, your brain.
Yeah, exactly. So now at this point, it's all on the computer. My work days writing the scores are entirely spent in an electronic studio with keyboards and computers and synthesizers. And I still, when I can, working on a bigger movie or something, I have an orchestra. Then there's still the recording sessions where I'll go and work with the live musicians. But now it's really all about the computer and the technology and the software to make that happen.
Sure. You won an Emmy for your work on Batman Beyond. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
When you guys set out to make music for this entirely new show, was the directive to go in a totally new direction? Like, forget about Elfman, we've got to make this really stand out as different.
Well, the producers decided they wanted to go in a different direction. And in fact, they also decided that because we had done such great orchestral scores for Batman and Superman, that there's no possible way in a Minnesota winter that we could do the kind of music that they were imagining, because they were imagining Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails and Rob Zombie, and how can these orchestral people possibly do that? And I credit Shirley for going to that meeting where they said, thank you, but we're going to go in a different direction, with saying, not so fast. Let us put together some music and we'll show you what we can do in this realm and see what you think. So Shirley sat down with us and said, here's the situation. We have to prove that we're not just orchestral composers, that we can also do this music that they're wanting to. So she gave us cassette tapes, if you remember those, of music that they had been listening to, which again was mostly Nine Inch Nails. It was very hard-edged techno, but with guitars and distortion. And myself and Michael and Lolita and Shirley all created standalone musical pieces that kind of captured the essence of that. And then that we put together our own cassette tape, and we interspersed some of the music that they've been listening to, so you can kind of hear how our music would go into the music that they were referring to.
Okay.
And they listened to it, and they said, okay, you've convinced us. You can totally do this style. And one of the pieces that I had composed, they decided that they wanted to use that for the main title of Batman Beyond. And that was completely unexpected. I didn't set out to write a main title. We were just trying to write cool music that captured that. And they said, they heard this one piece and they said, that's the one. So that became the theme for the show too.
Well, they were right, because I love the Batman Beyond theme. It's so unique, and I think it's really underrated. Diane will catch me just walking around the house going, wah, 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 and throwing my arms straight in the air.
When I was at CONvergence, I did a performance one night, and I actually did a remix version of that. So I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry you didn't get to see that.
Yeah, I missed that. I'll have to look it up on the CVG video. Let's talk about Batman and Harley Quinn, the new DC Warner animation film that you composed for. What's the challenge or difference when you're composing for a feature in contrast to a TV show or short?
When it's animation, actually, very little. The main thing about animation as opposed to live action is that everything happens so much faster. And this is even in the features, they don't really seem to spread out the pacing any, but especially on like the TV shows, something will happen in about 30 seconds. You'll have 15 different things going on that the music has to kind of address without seeming like it's rushing around. Whereas when you work on a live action TV series, that'll be 3 to 5 minutes long. So it's a lot more compressed. And, but as far as, looking at Justice League, at Batman the Animated Series, all that music is already so cinematic that when you get to a feature length project, it doesn't really change the approach. We're still telling the story. We're still following the emotions. We're still leading or misleading the audience. And that really doesn't make a difference. Now, the biggest thing about Harley Quinn was that it's primarily, it really is, I think people were kind of debating this, it really is supposed to be a comedy. For things that Bruce Timm have done, it's definitely the lightest in tone. It's definitely the funniest. But, we don't want to turn it into Bugs Bunny, some kind of wacky thing. So that was really the biggest challenge on Batman and Harley Quinn was how do we make sure that we, can support the humor in addition to all the other drama that we're doing and not change the overall message of the film, which is it's funny, it's a comedy, but still there's, like any other Batman story, there's still real life or death struggles that we have to deal with and action and everything else.
Yeah, and the Bugs Bunny stuff gets relegated to sort of the opening sequence, which is a sort of Blake Edwards Pink Panther-esque kind of thing where Batman and Harley are chasing each other around.
I love that opening sequence.
Yeah.
I think it's so great. And I have to tell you that my partners, Michael and I and Lolita, we write together for things like main themes, but usually when we're writing the rest of the music in the movie, we write independently because that way it can all be done essentially 3 times as fast and 3 times the effort on each individual piece. But I think Michael is really good at that kind of kind of jazzy style, but with a classical bent to it. And he's the one that actually created the main title sequence. And I just thought he nailed it. And then when we saw the visuals too, it was great.
Yeah, I would watch like a whole, well, maybe not a full length, but at least like a half an hour movie that was just that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know that you also composed for the Killing Joke film that came out last year, and I was curious. I know you wrote the I Go Loony song that Mark Hamill sings. When there's lyrical music in a film or on a show, like when Kevin Conroy sings Am I Blue in Justice League, are you doing the arrangements on that as well?
Yes. If they're doing a new recording of the voice, like the voice actor is singing, then yes, every time that I can think of, have also created the arrangements for it. One of the interesting things about the I Go Loony song, well, the Killing Joke compared to Harley Quinn, talk about night and day as far as
difference in tone, sure.
Well, okay, maybe not night and day, maybe Twilight. No, it was totally different. Love that film, but coming from the graphic novel, Joker sings in the graphic novel, but being the graphic novel, we've never known what the tune was.
Right.
And so that was actually even a bit daunting in a way of, oh gosh, now we have to make in a concrete sense the song that everyone's kind of been reading along in their head for the last 20, 30 years. And that was really pretty cool to get to give the Joker a voice in the way that Mark Hamill gives a voice. And I got to tell you, Mark Hamill, boy, what a force of nature. He's just amazing.
Yeah.
And he hadn't done Joker in so many years.
Yeah.
And we went to the recording sessions and we got to work with him. And before we did the song, he did a couple other lines, and we're just sitting in the control room listening to the voice, and there he was. It's the Joker, and
Luke Skywalker.
Well, and it's a little hard to not geek out about that, but
yeah, no, you're no kidding. I'd have to imagine that there are a lot of moments for you just being a geek and sort of geeking out at what you get to be involved in.
I will say yes, and because as I'm a fan of every show that I think I've worked on, there is this certain sense of I get to see this before anybody else does. And then I can't tell anybody. I have to kind of sit on it for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, one of the other interesting things about working with the singers is the way that the animation works is they write the script, and then they record the voices, and then they do the animation, which can take 6 to 9 months, and then they create the edit. They put the animation together, and then is when we as the composers or the sound editors people sit down and get to do their job. So it's actually really rare that we even get to see the voice actors, because our job happens just so much later than the process, except when there's a song. Because if people are going to be singing on screen, we do have to do the singing first. And so in that sense, we will get to write the song, we'll get to work with the actor to do the recording and see that whole process. So it's really, really thrilling to get to step into that world we don't normally get to see.
Can you tell us about your new film, Batman vs. Two-Face?
Sure. Well, it sadly was Adam West's last project to work on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I understand. I was actually trying to find out more about this. I guess it was not the last work that he did, because I think he recorded some more dialogue for Family Guy. But It was his last independent project, and in a way, because it kind of ties back to what I think he was best known as, is the 1966 Batman.
Right.
What a cool thing. I was growing up, I was just such a fan of that show, and being a sequel to the Return of the Cape Crusaders that came out last year, I think Return of the Cape Crusaders was really novel in the sense of, okay, we're going to do an animated version of the Adam West series, and they had Adam West, and they had Burt Ward, and they had Julie Newmar, and visually they called upon a lot of the same tropes, and just enough of them. And I mean, they had there's the classic scene where Batman and Robin are like scaling, going up the building. They actually did that in Return of the Cape Crusaders, the animated version.
And then does Sid Caesar pop out of the window or something? And it's like Batman and Robin.
That would have been awesome. They did not do that. But to do a sequel to that, then the producers, James Tucker and Michael Jelenic, just said, okay, we've done it. We've established it. We know there's an animated version of this. Let's go and make a cool movie in this world. And so musically, we still were paying homage to Neil Hefti and Nelson Riddle, the guys that did the music for the original series, including na 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 na, all that stuff. It's all there. But the story, it's still funny and campy, but it's a little bit darker. And so musically, we got to go into some different areas that we hadn't gotten to explore in the first one also. So yeah, it's really cool. But we still had the, swinging jazzy sound and horns and trumpets and guitars and all that good stuff.
That had to be fun to work with.
Oh yeah. And there is going to be a soundtrack from that. So we're very thrilled and honored that Watertower Records is releasing both Batman and Harley Quinn and the Return of the Caped Crusaders sometime here very shortly.
Okay, and people can get that in the usual places.
Yeah, I know digitally it'll be on iTunes and
Sure.
I'm not sure where else, and but there actually is a physical CD. The soundtracks are going to be exclusively, evidently, at fye.com.
Oh, okay, sure.
So that's where they can find it if they want to pick up that vintage CD thing. So
Yeah, sure. The hipsters will love that, yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks for your amazing work in composing. I know I personally have really enjoyed your music and all the shows you've composed for, and I want to thank you again for joining us on the show today.
Oh, it's been so much fun, and again, I was totally serious. I had a blast in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities at CONvergence, and I will definitely be there to visit with you guys again. And I really appreciate your time to talk about the show, the soundtrack.
Where can people find you online?
They can find us on our website. We go by Michael, Lolita, and Kris, but we have a company called the Dynamic Music Partners, and that's all it is, www.dynamicmusicpartners.com. We keep news posts up there of where we are, what's happening, what's coming up. We also have a Facebook page. For me personally, I'm on Twitter, which is Utadeer, Utadeer, and Instagram, Utadeer Official, like there's any other Utadeers in the world. And anyway, I would love to hear from people, and hope they'll keep in touch. And again, want to say thank you so much for the time to talk to you guys today.
Thanks again.
It was interesting talking to him about the process of how he composed for the animation.
Yeah, and then that was something that I was really interested in to know. Just being, I'm not a composer, but just I know the digital tools that we use today for audio. Like he said back then, it would be sitting down with Shirley, literal music paper.
Yes.
And what do you call it? With stabs on it,
Yes.
and just go, okay, write this out. And now it's all probably MIDI programs or and then Dropbox. I want to hear that. Here you go. Boom. Share it right there. There's none of this, well, show me what you got, kid. Sit down at the old piano and tickle the ivories. Yeah. It's got to be a completely different world now. But it was fascinating to listen to his stories and also just to talk to somebody who's, in one capacity been around for... I've been focused for 20 years on consuming all of this stuff, and he's been on the other side, helping to produce all this stuff.
Right.
And it's weird to make that kind of connection.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that can you imagine, do you think that, for instance, do you think Mark Snow likes watching The X-Files?
I don't know.
You think he's really, Scully, look out. I can tell that music cue means the monster's coming.
Yeah, right.
I have an inside track on this. But how exciting to actually love all this stuff and then get to work on this stuff.
And get to see it before everybody else does.
Yeah, do something you love. You never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So anyway, nice guy. Really great guy to talk to. And we definitely want to talk to him again in the future. And also glad that we made a CONvergence convert out of him. I mean, not us personally, but it's cool to see people could discover CONvergence. And then you get to... It's like introducing a friend to a movie that you really like. You're like watching them watch it. So you could find out more about Kris at his music company site, dynamicmusicpartners.com. He's also on Twitter at Utadeer, Utadeer. Should have asked what was behind that.
Yeah,
I got a lot of theories. But anyway, you can find him on Twitter as well at Utadeer. And thanks again, Kris, for talking with us. Well, I think that's it. We have showed all the show that we're going to show, I think, for now.
Yeah.
I want to remind listeners that if you want to get more of the show when we're not even showing, you can see what we show on Facebook and Twitter by going to Just Enough Trope in both of those places. And we're also on Apple Podcasts. Yes!
Got it.
Give me a treat later.
Okay.
For getting it right. Yes, we're also on Apple Podcasts. If you go to Apple Podcasts and search for Just Enough Trope, you'll find our show page. And while you're there, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the show. Makes sense. That's the best way to get the show. It comes right to you through those digital tools.
That's right.
No sitting down around the old piano for you, where we just do the whole show right there. Oh, we got to do it again? Bring the next one in. No, you get it right away. Also, while you're there, if you give us a review, we'd appreciate it because we love hearing from the fans. We love hearing how you think we're doing. And give us a rating. Really, this is the most important part. If you give us a rating, then iTunes knows, and it's not iTunes, it's Apple Podcasts, so take the treat right back.
Oh.
Knows that we're doing a good job. We move up on those ranks on Apple Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts knows that we're doing a good job, and we can reach other users through Apple Podcasts. Repetition is the key to remembering. So while you're there, give us 5 different colors of Superman.
Okay.
I think is the way to go.
Yeah.
And that way you've got one guy to write the article about the basketball team, and then you got 4 more guys to go stop a tsunami or whatever else.
Yes.
How can one man do? I know that he is a Superman, but how can he do all this stuff?
I don't know.
We a couple weeks ago, backtracking now, we did Astro City.
Yes.
By Kurt Busiek, and the first issue, centers on Samaritan, a Superman analog, and he is constantly in his sleep. He is tortured by all the things that he could have done and didn't do.
Yes.
I guess it's a comic book, so you got to let that go at some point. And I know that sense of responsibility is definitely part of Superman's character, but there has to be a time when he's biting into a hot dog and he hears a scream and he's like, he's got to feel like, hey, he'll get there before anything really bad happens, right? But if you've got 5 Supermen,
you can really do a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's a world that might be too terrible to really to comprehend. So let's just go with 5 stars instead. We're also on Google Play, whatever they're called. Good stuff. I kept it going for so long. And we're on Stitcher and other platforms as well, so all the same rules apply. And that's it. I think that we have to shut the pod down for now, but please join us next week when we read Tokyo Ghost.
Yes.
Which I'm going to have to dig up. It's back in the pile somewhere, but we'll
Okay.
get to that. And you can find that online too. That's it. We're done. We're signing off. I'm your host, Caliban.
I'm your co-host, Mikan Hana.
Keep the geek fires burning.